Hi, let's take a look at X-Men, uh, nope, Avengers issue 21, written by Jed MacKay, drawn by Valerio Schiti, and colored by Federico Blee. Full spoilers ahead, so you're forewarned. I am puzzled. Why does this MacKay Avengers issue feel more X-Men than his X-Men? Mind you, it is not a perfect issue, but ever since MacKay started his run on X-Men, it had felt off for a variety of reasons, many of which I had articulated in my reviews of X-Men. But this issue of Avengers, is X-Men. Hi, Future Tyler here. It feels good, doesn't it, that we have a capable writer whom clearly loves the X-Men because of all the references he threw in while writing X-Men, but somehow things just did not click with the X-Men title. With odd characterizations, awkward dialogue, and flat out wrong details, especially with respect to the previous era. I mean, they are all absent here, right? There are many scenes here that I love. I mean, the first of which is the baseball scene, which is a mainstay and classic X-Men trope. This is a tradition that Claremont started, and it continues to this day. I mean, it is fun. It introduces characters' powers without an enemy, and there are just tons of like personal moments that says, "Hey, we are not just a bunch of people thrown together because we have powers. We are friends and we are family." Oh, there is also a lovely scene between Glob and Storm. Ever since Bresson's got his hand on Glob, he had transformed him into this lovable character, and it continues here. I especially love how Glob is basically be cool, before he basically jumps with joy and excitement after Storm praised him and gave him a peck on the cheek. And the scene between Max, Wanda, and Vision, I feel like McKay knows Max here, but whenever we get to X-Men, his Max, more often than not, sounded off. Whether he was talking down to people, claiming things that had nothing to do with him, and honestly, just being a really terrible copy of the true Max. Here, you can draw a through line from where he was at the end of Krakoa to this character. Even that scene between Vision, Q, and Psylocke is fun. I mean, Q is a dick towards Vision, whom remain pretty non-emotional. I'm not sure if that is an accurate portrayal since I'm not as familiar with the Avengers, but it is a consistent characterization of McKay's run. And the relationship between Q and Psylocke here is more like siblings than the ultra competitive nature over in X-Men. Not that siblings can't be competitive with one another, it's just that that relationship seems more unhealthy and mean than what we see in this scene. What about the scene between Tony and Hank? There is some good writing here. Hank is afraid of what he will become or what he had became before. I'm not sure what the correct tense to use here is. And Tony basically tells him it is non-deterministic. You know better now. You can make a different choice. You can be not him. I love this hopeful message for Beast. The one thing I do not quite agree with is that bit with Storm and Temper. I do like that Temper opened up to Storm. Storm together with Hope did rescue her from mob, if I remember correctly. But after all that went down with Xavier on Krakoa, I do not think Storm would still, go, I still believe in the dream. Uh, yeah, but what is the dream at this point, right? Is it still the coexistence dream? Like, even when the mutants left humans alone and gave them bribes to keep them at bay, mutants were still targeted. Even though Storm prevented an accidental nuclear meltdown from getting worse, she was still hated, because even though she has nothing to do with the accident, but because it's caused by another mutant. So I'm utterly confused as to what believing in the dream means. I mean, I think It feels very much like saying the target of hatred needs to be better to reach out to their hate, people that hate them, which I think is the wrong message. Because like Scott told Carol in the next scene, things could get really, really bad for the X-Men. Well, I think what Storm meant is that she believed in the higher form of that dream, right? It started with peaceful coexistence, but ideally, there should not even be a need for coexistence, right? People should just be able to live peacefully together, regardless of the X gene or any other differences that slice and dice people into disparate groups. People are more similar than they think they are, like X-Men and the Avengers. So what struck me is that this issue shows MacKay gets it, right? That both teams are separated from the humanity that they are protecting. That's why I get upset with people who goes like, "Oh, this situation is the X-Men and not Krakoa," because this situation is exactly the same as what people are accusing Krakoa of. That living in the factory is still living separately and apart from the rest of like humanity. Only in this era, the mutants are suffering. So, that is X-Men. I mean, like, that's kind of BS. Anyway, I like that both Scott and Carol knew where each stands and that both are supportive of each other. As expected, Skitty delivered an issue of like lovely art, but the colors leave something to be desired. I had complained a little bit about Blee's coloring in other reviews, and it seems like he's everywhere in recent months. At times it is less noticeable, but in this issue, the colors are very noticeably washed out looking. Just look at the panels drawn by Skitty and colored by Blee versus colored by Valenza. I mean, you can see the difference here, right? One is richer, the other just look kind of like washed out. I agree. I understand that quite a lot of this issue took place during dusk, with the setting sun shining through into the factory, but the same can be said of Wolverine issue 2, and yet the colors are absolutely stunning in that issue. Part of the art in this issue feels a little sketch-like, kind of like when Skitty first started on Avengers. But otherwise, Skitty is having so much fun with all the characters and, drew the heck out of this issue. There were a myriad of like expressions on all the characters. Glob's expressions is absolutely delightful to witness on paper. Skitty manages to give him, well, basically a blob of see-through petroleum jelly and skeleton and intestines. Expressions of modesty, surprise, and elation, among other things. I also like Hank's expression when he was chatting with Tony, and all the fun things Skitty added, like the one panel with Yana and Sam doing one-handed push-up, or the various short scenes with Yana and Kane during the baseball game, or even Q's expression in the scene with Vision. And that Wanda smirk had one appearance in this issue. And while the background does not have the kind of gribbles that Stackman and Diaz filled in over at X-Men, there are still a lot of details here that suggest the same kind of effect in the factory. Plus, look at all the food that Glob made. In conclusion, MacKay shows that he has a good handle on almost all the characters on both teams. He shows that he could write X-Men that feels like X-Men. I know this sort of became an X-Men review, but can you blame me when this version of X-Men had mostly been absent in the actual X-Men title? This is a 4 out of 5 for me. Agree. I also enjoy Skitty's art immensely and would have rated this issue higher if not for the coloring. So this is a must buy. If you enjoyed this video, please do not hesitate to hit the like button and subscribe to our channel. Please share this with your friends and leave us a comment. Thanks, and Tyler out.